Hey everyone, as discussed in our daily financial news, we are bringing Greg Dickerson on to our Monday session. How you doing, Greg?
Doing great, Michael. How are you?
Oh, today's a good day. Today's a day that you and I've actually talked about probably for the next last 6 or 7 months that this day would get here, right? We would have
Yep.
a treatment of some kind that kind of took death off the table. I would argue the news today is exceeds my expectations, right? With a 90% plus effectiveness, which was more than we could have hoped for. So I think it's even better. But when you heard the news, what was your first thought?
Well, so it's a vaccine, not a treatment. So,
Yeah,
I was surprised to hear that they're touting a 90% efficacy
yeah,
of the vaccine. We still don't have a treatment. What we're hearing is the opposite on treatments, that some of that stuff's not quite there yet, but the vaccine's big news. But, the big thing about it is, again, it's going to take time. Whoop, now, did you just fell down?
nah,
It's going to take some time. Yeah, I'm mobile right now.
that's okay.
Um, Yep. It's going to take some time, to get the vaccine out to everybody. A lot of people, I mean, I think the reports right now, not, I think it was like 60, 70% of the people don't trust the polls anymore, but the
Yep.
polls say that, 60% of the people aren't going to take the vaccine. I think you can trust that poll.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of people that don't want the vaccine, that aren't going to want to get the vaccine. And even that being said, right now they have about 50 million doses that they say that they could release. And again, it's not going to be until next year, and it's going to take time to get that 50 million doses. It's a two treatment
Mhm.
dose, so that's only 25 million people that can actually get it. So that's even a fraction of the amount of essential healthcare workers to even get the vaccine. So
Yeah.
everybody's getting ahead of themselves. Wall Street's on a big speculative high right now. It's just a big, it's fake. It's not real. It's a speculative frenzy on this news. And then what happens is tomorrow there'll be a big sell off because
Yeah.
all the news is going to settle in. That's going to take all this time to get it out there. Most of the people are, I mean, it's only a fraction of the population that's going to even be able to take advantage of it. And it'll be middle to the end of next year before, and more likely end of next year into the following year before you have mass scale where pretty much most of the people in the country that wants the vaccine can take the vaccine. The real interesting question is, let's say we have a Biden administration, is there going to be a national vaccine mandate? That's going to be the question. We know a mask mandate's coming.
Yeah.
We know shutdowns are coming with Biden in office. The question is, can they mandate a vaccine at large and at scale, make you take that vaccine? That'll be an interesting thing.
Yeah. So a couple of things that when I heard it first and foremost, I could finally envision a date, right? We've been staring into this abyss, this black hole. We were in a tunnel and there was no light. You and I both knew there was going to eventually be a light. So now I can see the
Mm-hmm.
light. We can argue about how far away it is. I don't care. Um, but we see a light. And frankly, that's great news. So the second thing I started thinking about, yeah, the stock market, and do you rotate out of big tech? And then there's the airlines and cruise lines that are now on death. They were on deathbed. AMC theaters, right, was days away from going bankrupt, and now they can get a loan probably. I mean, there's all of that stuff, but that's not where I play. I'm a real estate investor.
Mm-hmm.
So the first couple of things I asked about is, okay, what changed literally between yesterday and today? I think there's new questions. One, does this the mer does the I don't know what you want to call it, migration from urban vertical cities to the suburbs continue, slow down, reverse? Real questions. I don't know. I mean, I have to think about that, and it's way too early to tell, but I think that's a reasonable question, right? If
Yeah.
you live in New York City and you can see Broadway being open in June. I'm just picking June as a month. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to pick August, I don't care. But yeah, if you see the city coming back in the summer, do you stay? Right? You haven't moved yet. This is key. You haven't moved yet. Do you stay? Right? Do you cancel the movers? I don't know. Um, if you moved into the suburbs and you bought a house and you're transitioning, do you plan to keep your kids in school more than just this year? Do you move back next? I think there's so many interesting questions, and this migration is a big one I've got to figure out, because we've already, I mean, just yesterday I talked about 30% rent drops in multiple cities. I'm like, huh, could be interesting. Another
Mm-hmm.
one, what happens with millennials, right? I've been a big believer of millennials are fundamentally changing and becoming owners versus renters. But does that pause? Does that slow down? You know, there's so many different questions I have to ask today because again, I'm putting hundreds of thousands of dollars to work, and it's going to take time to figure it out. But these are new questions. I did not have
Yeah.
these at 4 a.m. when I woke up, but I have them now, and I'm like, man, some big news coming.
Well, again, nothing changed between yesterday and today because there is no vaccine out there yet. Nobody's taken it yet. So nothing has changed on that front.
Well,
What
no, hold
is
on.
changing?
One sec. I think something did change. We got a light. We can argue about the date, but we have a light. Yesterday, you and I would have talked. We're still in a dark tunnel, nothing coming. I think that is a change. I mean, disagree with me if you do, but I think that is a change.
Yeah. So what you have is the potential for a
Okay,
light.
fair enough.
Nothing has been released yet. There's no
Uh,
vaccine that's been shipped, and
fair enough.
nobody's taking it that's not in a trial.
Okay.
There's no light yet. What you have is just like we had before, positive news on something, but then, until it's so I'll put it in these terms that you'll understand. A deal ain't a deal till the check clears the bank.
Fair enough.
All
Just
right.
because it's in escrow don't mean it's done. No, you're right.
Exactly.
Fair
This
enough.
deal hasn't closed yet. And more importantly, the check has not cleared the bank. And, funds are getting hijacked all the time in
Yeah.
escrow. So
Yeah. You're
a
right. You're
deal
right.
is not a deal till those funds have cleared the bank and it's in your account.
Fair enough.
So
So I would say
until
we're in contract and maybe we've got through
right.
inspections, but the deal's not done.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. So from the
Okay.
mindset, what we're talking about is what you asked specifically. How does that affect the psyche of an individual in New York City that had plans to move because everything is shut down, everything is locked down, and the virus is at large and it's on a tear right now. It's growing and growing, and arguably, once you open up in New York, it should come right back. And let's just talk about New York, right?
Sure.
That's just a big area.
That's
They
fair.
had they were the hardest hit, right? So the people that have left New York, the millennials I've talked to have said, look, we live in New York and we pay a premium to live in New York because of all the amenities, the entertainment, the environment, the excitement. That's gone.
Yeah.
That's gone because of COVID. There was some civil unrest where people couldn't even go out to eat without being
I
harassed.
saw that.
That's kind of gone. Okay. So the civil unrest is over. That was a temporary thing. We shouldn't see a whole lot of that, but if the wrong person gets, unfortunately shot or whatever, mistreated during whatever, you could see that happen again. So that's still a big issue that people are afraid of being in cities because of, protests and
Okay.
marches when something bad happens to somebody, in that environment. So that's still a big issue on people's minds. They want to feel safe and
Hmm.
want their kids to be able to feel safe. So law enforcement, defund the police, all that is still a big issue. That's still out there. We don't know where a new administration is going to stand on that and how they're going to actually handle all that, right?
Hmm.
COVID is a whole nother, side of the equation. So what changed yesterday between today? Nothing open. Movies haven't opened back up.
Yeah.
Restaurants aren't back at full capacity. So nothing has changed. That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
Nobody that
Totally agree.
was closed yesterday because of COVID opened today because there's news of a vaccine. It ain't happening.
Yeah.
And we are going to continue to see more contraction, more shutdowns, and more issues, even with this on the forefront.
Hmm.
Because again, the only people that are going to get it right away are going to be, healthcare workers,
Yeah.
government officials, essential personnel, law enforcement, police, fire, rescue. So the general public, where you can reopen the economy at scale, is not going to feel the effects till well into the end of the year, into next year, assuming this is, you know, on track. Now, they're saying we've got this vaccine that's 90% effective. Um, they haven't said when they're going to release it. They haven't
Mm.
said it's ready for shipping on this day. So those are the things I look at in terms of what you're talking about. Now, the question is, once that is out there and it is available, is that going to affect and change somebody's mindset? And I think there's more decisions. Number one, safety. Number two, taxation.
Hmm.
Number three, what you can get for your money. Number four, interest rates. Millennials are buying right now because it just makes sense. Why
Hmm.
rent for 1,500 to 2,000 or 3,000 a month?
Yeah.
That can buy you a lot of house right now at 2.75%,
Sure can.
interest. So those are some of the things that are driving that millennial conversation. And the other side of the equation is all of the businesses that have learned how to work remotely now have a workforce that's global. Are they going to go back to requiring people to live in San Francisco and Palo Alto to work for their tech company?
No
I
chance.
think I think that permanent work at home thing or that work at home thing is a permanent trend that's
I
going
agree.
to affect populations in cities. So New York's going to survive. San Francisco is going to survive. Seattle's going to survive. You know, all the big cities that have had issues, Chicago, and have had some attrition, they're going to survive. You're not going to shut down a big city. The question is, how quickly will they come back? How quickly will they return? And what is the migration going to look like in these other areas? And one of the ways you can stay on top of it is follow U-Haul,
Yeah,
moving data. So you can kind of follow it real time and
sure
see,
can.
what's going on there. Is it still on the upswing? Have they contracted? Where are people moving to? So it's going to be a really fascinating thing to watch. But I don't think anything is going to change in the next rest of this year. I don't think until we get into next year and they actually start shipping the vaccine. I think that's what it's going to take for people's mindset to fundamentally change on whether or not I'm going to move. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this question, because one thing did change. Again, you know, I'm always interested in trying to catch the inflection points, because that's where real money is made. Like, for example, one of the deals I would not touch yesterday that I just need to think about today, and I don't have an answer, is I would not buy a house today unless it was significantly discounted that had a tenant in it, right? If the tenant was in it, they were not paying, right? They're, the COVID this, COVID that. I would not want to buy that to inherit the problem.
Okay.
Now I have to go, let's assume this comes out, basically I wouldn't buy it before because I didn't want the risk. I had a timing risk. When can I evict them? Is it January? Is it March? Is it June? Right? How far can these be extended? Because again, remember, I'm in California, and
Yeah.
we've had people not paying since March, and who knows when that will end. Now the vaccine, at least the hope of a vaccine, I could see an end date. Right? They won't do evictions forever. Right? We'll eventually be able to do that. So I don't know the answer to that. I mean, do I think the CDC eviction could get extended from December 31st? Sure. But does it go past March, past April? I have a hard time thinking it gets much past that, because I do think the economy comes back. So these are just things I'm thinking
Yeah.
about now.
Yeah, that I don't know. And again, it's not even out there yet. So that's not even on the table. I think and a lot of it depends on the administration. Has the administration changed? If Biden's in there, what does the Senate look like? So there's a lot of
Yeah.
questions. So if you get a blue wave and somehow, the Republicans do not hold the Senate, then it's going to be carte blanche, with the Biden administration and a Democratic Congress and a Democratic Senate,
Mm-hmm.
where they could potentially pass, indefinite eviction moratoriums and indefinite rent controls and, things like that. So those are the types of things you got to still be thinking about. There's a new administration potentially coming in, and what are those things going to look like? And again, it's going to take a while to get this thing under control.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about big stimulus, big extensions, all that. So the assumption should be they're going to extend that moratorium indefinitely until the population gets vaccinated and coronavirus is wiped out. Let me tell you, if you had a vaccine for every single person in this country today, you're still not going to wipe coronavirus off the map for a couple of years. It
Mm-hmm.
ain't going to happen. Even if everybody could get vaccinated today, every single person in this country, it still is going to take time. And then we don't even know, well, is that permanently effective?
Right.
Because here's the thing, the flu vaccine is not a permanent, cure
Yep.
or, deterrent of anybody getting the flu and dying from it. So we just don't know what we don't know. So, but and that's what I look at from that point. No, that's not going to stop me from doing a deal. It's not going to stop me from doing business. What it is going to stop me from doing is being more liberal in my criteria than I am now. I'm going to still continue to be just as conservative in my underwriting today based on COVID as I was yesterday, with or
Hmm.
without a vaccine. And I will continue that even as the vaccine gets produced, released, and put out there at scale. I'm going to continue my conservative assumptions based on the understanding I have today of the effects of COVID and what that can do, until we know exactly what are those extensions on moratoriums going to look like, what are rent controls going to look like, what is your tax environment really going to look like? Because
Yeah.
again, if you get Biden in office, there's going to be conversations about tax loopholes. First thing they want to do is they want to eliminate all these things that Trump put into place, and
Oh
the
yeah.
Tax and Jobs Act was one of them, which gives you a lot of real estate, tax incentives that we've been able to take advantage of, and self-employment tax incentives. That could go away.
Yeah. 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 Then the last thing I was thinking about, again, before we get on to topic number 2, is, Do I look at any new part of the real estate cycle different today? And again, it's very simple to me, yesterday and today.
Yeah.
And you and I have talked before, like the small retail strip center, 6, 5, 6, 7 stores, in an
Hmm.
L with, 40 parking spots or whatever it is. Those were probably one of the most stressed assets, at least in my market. Um, I don't know. Do I look at those differently today? I think I do, right? Because I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I go, you know what? You get this asset cheap enough. It always has to be cheap enough. And, maybe it's half full. Could I hold that a year and then start to fill it up with new tenants? I might look at that kind of deep discount differently because again, I see a light. I think it's less than a year. Maybe I do that deal today that maybe I don't do yesterday. I don't know. Does that make
So
sense?
yeah, so that's a different conversation. So if you have the ability to hold and you can carry something, then yeah, it's a great time to be buying because there's still a lot of distressed assets and buying a house with that, tenant in place that's in default on their lease. If you can weather that storm
Mhm.
for a potential future, change in the environment, then yeah, that's nothing wrong with that at all. And that's the kind of stuff I'm out looking at today. I'm looking at some distressed assets and
Nice.
things like that, not because of any news or anything. It's just what I do. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just out today and I just happen to be out looking. So my business model hasn't changed because nothing is in front of us today that's concrete.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of uncertainty and all that. So I'm still looking at things the way I've been looking at them the last 6 months
Okay.
until we get a firm administration. We have a firm grip on what policy is going to look like. We know exactly what this vaccine and what the COVID situation is going to look like. And again, until that's out there, at scale, you don't even know how real effective that's going to be. And we've got to get through the rest of this. And I mean, there's a lot of talk today about like, AMC theaters, Regal theaters, cruise lines, hotels.
Airlines. Yeah.
Um, when are people going to all of a sudden go back at scale in mass once we have a vaccine? How long is that going to take? And can these businesses even make it through to the restaurants? Can you even make it through to that point? If we face another big shutdown where we're at right now, because that's kind of where we're at. So it's really interesting timing for all this. And the key is going to be how much of this vaccine. There was a big thing on 60 Minutes last night about the vaccine and getting it out to the people and all of the logistics that are involved. I mean, people think it's simple. You just put it in a bottle and ship it. It just doesn't work like that. A lot of huge major logistics and decisions to get enough of these doses out there to really be able to vaccinate the population. Then again, probably half the people aren't going to want to take it.
Yeah. Lots of great stuff. I love the fact that you haven't changed anything yesterday, today. I have, at least I'm contemplating change it. So maybe I need to go back and check myself and watch this video again because you're the professional doing lots more deals. So I appreciate that answer. And that's topic number 1 of the day. Thank you very much, Greg.
Yep. Good to be here.
Thanks, buddy.